Again, my name is Mike Seiler. I'm the State Public Assistance Officer for FEMA, which is, we are the branch of the state that deals with the federal funding on this between you and FEMA. We're here to support, we're here as your advocate, and later on then we'll transition to the payment process to get your money funded to you. Please be patient with this. If we ask you for something, it's because we've seen it be asked by other applicants and other disasters. We know they're going to ask for it, or it's something that we have been told to ask for. It's a process like anything else, but we'll work through it. Just stay in contact with us and we'll get it knocked out. Okay, so everybody able to see this decently enough, right? So this disaster is 4874. It was declared May 21st, 2025, and that covers from March 14th to March 15th. So FEMA has deadlines, and one of them is going to be the deadline to submit your RPA or request for public assistance. That deadline is June 20th. Please get it done today. We have paper copies to do it just hard copy by hand, but we also are going to have, you have options to do it online. So get that done earlier, sooner the better, because I always have to go beg FEMA to have somebody added after the 30-day deadline, and they don't have to do that. So sooner the better. So if I'm going to repeat numbers and dates, it's because there's a reason for it. 20th of June, but I would like to see them by the end of the week, please, so I don't have to go beg FEMA for anything. So we went over, my name is Mike Seiler, and my email is here. I'll have some cards later on and we'll give to you. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly, or but you will have a representative from my office that's going to be assigned to you, and then they'll be following the progression throughout the disaster. You'll also be assigned initially a FEMA representative who'll be working with you as well. That's going to be a team, so please keep your FEMA and your MEMA person updated as much as humanly possible on the situation and how you're doing and progressing and working and your damages, so we all know where you are. It's better for our visibility so we can keep up with what's going on, because if there's a question or if we see something that can be answered by us, or if we see something that we need to approach from a different direction, let us know, and we'll be able to help you out through it. But again, this is my email address, but you'll be given a business card of mine, and we'll try to get you with whoever's representing you in your particular county. Those counties currently in declaration of this for public assistance is Calhoun, Carroll, Covington, Grenada, Humphreys, Issaquah, Itawamba, Jefferson, Davis, Lee, LaFleur, Marion, Pike, Prentiss, Sharkey, Smith, Walthall, and Washington. We have the ability to add counties, request to add counties, and I know there's one, two that we're in that position with that we may have to add some counties, but we can do that. Again, just let us know. So I think everybody here has been an applicant, right? I'm not talking to anybody new. Everybody understands what public assistance is. Everybody knows what it means to be an applicant. But the overview of this is public assistance definition, the applicant, the facility, and the work and the cost is what we're going to discuss in this. So public assistance defined, again, for the test, supplemental financial assistance to state and local governments and certain private nonprofit organizations for response and recovery activities required as a result of a federally declared disaster. Funding is cost shared at a federal share of no less than 75% of eligible cost. This can fluctuate, never lower, but it could fluctuate going up. In previous disasters, it's happened. I've seen it go all the way up to 100. It's not going to happen in this one. And just realistically, I don't see it going above 75 in this one. So if you're going to bank on something that's going to be 75, will be the federal share for this disaster. There's a non-federal share of the 25%, which the state of Mississippi has elected to share that with the applicants. I think most of y'all are aware that the state of Mississippi will cover 50% of the non-federal share, which is that 12.5% that most of y'all are aware of. So if, for instance, it would go to 90% federal share, then the half of the non-federal share, which would be 5%. Half of 10% is 5%. If that was to happen, but I'm asking or saying now, don't count on that being the case in this disaster. This is what I was discussing on the 75%, the state share at 12.5%. Private nonprofits, I don't believe we have any in the room, does not participate in, I'm sorry, I stand corrected, we do have private nonprofits. Does not get the state share payment, so it's a flat 75%. So, public assistance program assists in restoration of community infrastructures as a result of a federally declared event. It is a supplemental cost reimbursement program which specifically for specifically eligible requirements. Tongue twister. So reimbursement, underline and bold. So reimbursement, you've got to spend the money. We've even had changes, if you've been in the past disasters, we have had changes to the small projects where we're going to have to get some documentation. Not to the level that you're experienced with a large project, but even with a small project, we're going to have some bare bone information. So, yes, when one of the project officers reaches out to you and says we needed invoices, we need canceled checks for small projects, there's a reason for it, and we're going to have it. The FEMA share of eligible costs will be available to the recipient grantee for disbursement to the applicants. I'm getting cut off here. We will do the best we can to get the funding to you as quickly as we can. We're going to work with you to make sure. We've still got to answer to people when we release money, right? Everybody's got an auditor, and I've got a bunch of them, both on the state and federal side. So I've got to keep them happy. So if I'm asking for the information, it's so I can get you paid. We were going to release these funds as quickly as we possibly can to you so you can try to move on with recovery and back to a normality in your operational procedures, our operation. Public assistance is not assistance to local populations for damages to private houses, commercial property, local businesses. We are only the governmental agencies and certain private nonprofits. I think we're pretty much aware of that, but I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music. We're only here for the public entities. So FEMA in this partnership is going to be those managing the program, providing technical assistance, and they essentially approve the grant. MEMA, which is also referred to as a recipient, you could see that in documentation, educates applicants, works with FEMA to manage the program, implements and monitors grants awards. So we're going to be the one that are going to be with you till the end. FEMA will be here as long as it takes to get it done, and then they're going to be pulling out, and we will be the ones that are going to stay in with you, getting your money reimbursed as quickly as humanly possible. And then you, or the applicant, are the sub-recipient. Identifies damages. You'll need to let us know what that is. It would be an injustice for us to come and try to tell you what your damages are. It just doesn't work that way. So this is where the biggest role you're going to have in there is you've got to let us know what your damages are. Hopefully, we've had enough time that all damages are pretty much documented, and this is going to be a quick process to get that categorized and put in a project worksheet and moved on so we can get some funding. Provides documentation and manages funded projects. So the eligibility pyramid, if everybody can see it, this is going to be how you're determined and how the work and cost is going to be determined as eligible, right? So it has to be an eligible applicant. So you're sitting in this room for a reason, that you've been an eligible applicant, you're within those counties that was earlier mentioned, and that you are a certified eligible applicant. So the facility also has to be eligible. So the facility has to be within your control, your responsibility to maintain. So the facility has to, the work has to. and the cost. The cost has to be eligible for you to get reimbursement in this program. So the eligible applicants will be state, when MDOT representatives here, thank you, declared counties, I see county officials that are here today, cities, towns, villages with declared counties, other political subdivisions of the state, Native American tribal governments and tribal organizations, and certain nonprofit organizations. Sorry, kind of cut off at the bottom. So again, everybody here has been an applicant, is familiar with the public assistance process, so we know that we're talking to the right audience. To be eligible as a PNP, the PNP must show that it has a current ruling letter from the IRS granting tax exemption under 501C, D, or E, or Internal Revenue Service Code of 1954, or documentation from the Mississippi Secretary of State sustaining it is a non-revenue producing nonprofit entity doing business under state law. So we have two categories of private nonprofits. You have your critical services, which our friends here are critical. It's fire, emergency rescue, that'd be your volunteer fire departments and your ambulance services, whoever you use, MedStat, AMR, whoever. That would be under them, medical treatment, power, water, sewer, utilities, communication systems, and educational facilities. Non-critical are eligible for emergency work, museum, community centers, libraries, houses of worship, senior citizens, zoos, daycare centers, etc. Facility eligibility. To be eligible for the facility must be damaged as a result of the declared offense. Speaks for itself, right? Located within the presidentially declared area, be the legal responsibility of the eligible applicant, and not be under the authority of the federal agency. So, MDOT, I'll pick on you. For that example, MDOT receives federal funding for roads. That would fall under the federal highways system, so that would not be a part of a reimbursable expense that you may have. So anything that's been paid for by a federal agency is not going to be applicable to this. Again, we talked about legal responsibility, and I want to keep harping on that. It has got to be your legal responsibility to do this. If it's not, it's not going to qualify. If you're leasing property and it doesn't have in there that you're legally responsible to repair that facility, or vice versa, if somebody's got property that you're leasing to them, it needs to say that if it says they're responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep, it's going to fall back on them. So you have to be legally responsible for the property in question. Be within, which we all are here, be within that declared area and a part of the time frame in that event dates. So, type of work: emergency work, debris removal, and emergency protective measures. So debris removal is just that. You're picking up sticks, right? Simplest way I can put it. You're picking up sticks. In some cases, you may be picking up C&D, which would be the washers or dryers, the other items that were damaged in the event that might be placed on the right-of-way. So that debris removal, we'll get into the difference between debris removal and cutting push here in a little bit. But just for your clarification, categories A and B is emergency work, permanent work. C through G. C being roads and bridges. D is water control facilities. E is public buildings, equipment. F is public utilities, and G is the catch-all. It's the other. So everything else that falls outside of any of those pre-mentioned categories will go into that G category. FEMA is authorized to provide public assistance funding for emergency work, including emergency protective measures and debris removal. Emergency work is what must be done immediately to save lives, protect public health and safety, protect improved property, eliminate or lessen an immediate threat of additional damages. Again, this is pretty much self-explanatory. Whatever you need to do to save your folks, in the beginning, during, or after. So if you're having to clear roads, if you're having to blockade roads, if you're having to provide medical support, anything that you do to help the public is going to fall under an emergency work. Now let's talk about Category A specifically a little bit. It eliminates immediate threat to life, health, and safety. It eliminates an immediate threat to significant damage to improved property. It ensures economic recovery of the community and provides a benefit for the community at large. So we can talk a little bit about what the difference is between cut and push and debris removal. Debris removal is you're removing that item from the site and taking it to a final resting place. You're taking it somewhere. It may be a temporary staging site, or maybe it's final. It may be a landfill. You're taking it somewhere. You're taking it to its final resting place. So that's going to fall under the Category A. Now, if you have volunteer firemen or volunteers or anybody that's out there just cutting and pushing it off to the side so you can open roads for your ambulances and people go back to school or whatever the case may be, that is going to fall under a Category B, which we'll discuss here in a minute. So I wanted to clarify the two because it gets a little confusing because you don't know how to classify your help. If it's just pushing that item out of the way, not taking it somewhere and giving a final place disposition to that commodity or that item, then that's going to be a cut and push. Any questions on the difference between A's, cut and push and debris? Category A. So Category A, please do contact MDEQ for staging sites. You've got to satisfy them. If they're not satisfied, that could jeopardize the whole thing. Please contact MDEQ. Please get truck certifications. Certify that your trucks are measured and it does not take long to do. We'll be happy to help you do that. Make sure those trucks are certified and you know how much they're able to haul. Monitor that debris removal. A lot of people would elect to hire a contractor. I agree. I think that should be a third-party thing. But don't forget, if you do that, you're still their boss. You need to monitor them, making sure they're doing their job, they're doing it correctly, and that way you don't end up with a huge bill at the end of the day that you're not really sure what they did for it. So monitor the monitors. Activate your pre-position contract. I would hope you do. If you do, your life is so much more easy because you can just make that one call and tell somebody you'll see them tomorrow when they show up to start work. If not, then you've got to go through the headache of finding somebody. Bid out debris work beyond 30 days. We'll talk about contract and procurement here in a little bit more with more detail, but be careful with procuring contracts. I've seen in the past where people have said, oh, we're still under a state of emergency 2 years later. Every board meeting of this city goes under another state of emergency for that, so we're good with our contracts. That's not the way it's looked at. The reason we have that leniency for when you have the ability to get an emergency contract is because it needs to happen so fast that you're unable to properly procure it. So what is that? There is no time frame. There is nothing in a book that will say you must have procured contracts if it's 60 days out. There's nothing in a book. But going back to the meaning of it, it is just so you can get work started immediately without having to go through the proper procurement. So when time comes up and you have the opportunity, get it procured properly. Even if you have to stop the contractor that you're doing emergency contract with and go do proper procurement, do that. I know sometimes this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm trying to protect you and what kind of reimbursement you can get at the end of the day. But it would behoove you, it would be so important to have somebody right there on call that you can call and say, come into work. I don't think he'll mind Frank Eason under the bus when he's around about how difficult it was when Rolling Fork got hit a couple years ago. He just didn't know which way was up. He wished now, and does have a preposition so he can make that phone call, because he had so much going on just trying to look for people, trying to make sense of all just what happened. So having that one phone call and being able to call somebody and say, get here, it takes so much off of you. So that's my sell pitch for a preposition contract, and we'll move on. Bid out debris work, we just talked about the procurement. If you have any questions for procurement, I'm not an attorney, but I will get you with one. I'll sit there and tell you what I've seen in the past, but go through your attorney and make sure it's properly procured. So don't stage your debris wherever you want. That's when we get back into all kind of problems with DEQ, floodplains. There's all kind of problems you can get into. Contact DEQ. Make sure they're good with it. Place debris in unpermitted sites. Again, we go back to the MDEQ. Got to that one apple can just ruin the whole thing. So be sure that you're in touch with them. Don't continue that emergency contract between. I've got 30 days, but you get my point with this. 30, 60 days. There's nothing in writing, but the reason for that grace period is because something needs to move and happen before you can get it procured properly. So, for example, if you do go out and get a contractor in an emergency situation, immediately when they start working, go ahead and start the procurement process. If you think it's going to take more than 30, 60 days. Now, if you can get it accomplished in that time frame, you're good. You're golden. But if it's going to take longer, go ahead and start that process immediately. Ignore debris monitoring. Again, whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring a third party to do it, do not ignore monitoring. We'll need to see that. Category B. Is there any questions on Category A before I move on? So Category B, actions taken by applicants before, during, and after a disaster to save lives, protect public health and safety, and prevent damage to improved property. Include search and rescue, fire flood fighting, security such as barricades, fencing, or law enforcement, and the pushing of debris, not disposal. If it's just being pushed off the road, that's B. If you're taking it somewhere else to give it a final resting spot, that's disposal. That's Category A. Okay? Before we jump out of emergency work, is there any questions on A or B? So now we're going to look at your permanent work, eligible permanent work, and that's going to be Category C through G. This work must repair, restore, or replace disaster damaged facilities accordance with regulation. Must restore a pre-disaster design capacity and function to accordance with applicable codes and standards. Must be required as a result of the disaster. May include cost-effective hazard mitigation measures. Is there anybody that's got insurable property damage? A building? Okay. Category C, the roads and bridges. you will more than, I hadn't remember seeing any roads and bridges in this part of the state, but you possibly could after your debris operations are over. So be sure before your debris, or right now if it's already started, look at your roads and take good pictures of your roads, because that is something that FEMA can help you cover if the operation damages your roads. I'm not saying you can replace the whole road, but if they make some potholes, rut it out, that's a possibility that you can get some assistance on getting the road work taken care of. And if it is something due to the storm of 14-15, that's also something we need to know about. Make sure those roads are not Fed aid roads that we were just talking about. You need to have the responsibility. Remember, you have to be legally responsible for them. We have any road damage questions? Category D, facilities built, that was the water facilities, Category D, and that is facilities built for the following purposes: pumping, drainage, or irrigation. Category E, building and equipment. My question about the insurance relates back to Category E, buildings and equipment. I'm not hearing anything about insurable costs. I'm assuming we don't have any building damages, publicly owned building damages.
We got an airport damage.
Airport owned by the county?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that would fall under here. Building contents are also included in this. So, there's a 50% rule, and if the facility is deemed to be damaged over 50%, they'll completely replace it. There's codes and standards upgrades that can be applied to this if needed. There is equipment is covered under this, vehicles and supplies. So we'll get into insurance in a little bit more, but insurance will be taken into this dollar value placed to this PW. If it's $100,000 and the FEMA's insurance specialist deem that $80,000 should be applied to this, it's going to be a $20,000 delta, right? They're going to apply the insurance. They're going to apply the insurance that their insurance specialists deem it to be worth. So I say that, don't settle. If you're supposed to get insurance, don't settle for whatever they give you. Act as if FEMA is not there. If you're supposed to get that $80,000, they come up and tell you we're going to give you $50,000. If you're due $80,000, they want you to go for the $80,000. So be mindful of that. I don't want to get too far off on insurance because it does come up here in a little bit. And salvage value as well if you get salvage. Category F is utilities, power generation and distribution centers, water and sewer treatment plants, telecommunication systems. Damage must be disaster related. I believe our utility service are old hats at this, but it's a no-brainer. It's got to be it's something that was affected by the storm, right? Got to be affected by the storm.
Where does that water company fall under
This water utilities, yes, sir. It'll be them. So water, sewer treatments, telecommunications. If you have any cable or fiber optic or any of those would also follow under this. And this is applicable to the right-of-ways, the poles, the whatever it is damaged that provides that service. And we're now at the catch-all, the Category G. The playgrounds, the swimming pools, the ballparks, the piers, the beaches, anything that doesn't have a place somewhere else is going to fall under this Category G. Do we have any parks in Walthall or Marion, anywhere? Pike? So I know there were some schools that were close there on 27, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Salem.
Salem had some damage, but not
Just not much. Okay.
One of our fire stations that was destroyed was right there in Salem's parking lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the church that's also right there by the school had some roof damage. Statement or
Yes, sir. Okay. The last category we're going to talk about is category Z. This is administrative costs that you were going to incur during this process. So this is your time. This is your equipment costs. This is your any training that you have to do, hardware that you have to buy, software you have to buy. Anything that is associated with completing the task at hand, this is going to be where this is. It's under category Z, and it is capped at 5%. Capped at 5% of whatever that you bring in totally, cumulatively total. So all the projects total is 5% is the cap on this category Z project. Also, this is 100% federal. This doesn't fall under the 75. It will be paid at 100%. You will have to track these costs. We're going to have to get it like we would a large project. We're going to have all that documentation, your invoices or your force account labor, your payrolls, your proof of payment on those payrolls, like you would with anything else. So we will have to track those costs. So if you do plan to have a Z written and make a claim against a category Z, please track your costs, your administrative costs. So cost eligibility. To be eligible for reimbursement, costs must be reasonable and necessary to accomplish the eligible work. A cost is reasonable if, in its nature and amount, it does not exceed that which would be incurred by a prudent person under the circumstances prevailing at the time and the applicant makes the decision to incur the cost. So in short, just because FEMA's here to pay 75%, don't just go out there and take whatever highest number you can get. Okay? This is your tax dollars. It's my tax dollars. So be sure that we try to put the best deal out there that we can get. That's going to where your procurement falls in. But if it falls under procurement, make sure that you're getting having due diligence to make sure you got several quotes from vendors or whoever that you are getting a good cost that would be that a prudent person would incur. Okay. To be eligible for reimbursements, costs must comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Again, we go through that procurement and authorized and not prohibited under federal, state, territorial, tribal, or local governments' laws or regulations. Consistent with the applicant's internal policies, regulations, and procedures that apply uniformly to both federal awards and other activities of the applicant. To be eligible for reimbursement, costs must include deductions of insurance proceeds, salvage value, and purchase discounts. So, like I mentioned before, this is the last source of funding. Everything has to come off that bottom line before FEMA funds come into play. It has to be the last source of funding. So if you're getting a salvage value, if you're getting discounts during your purchase, or your insurance proceeds, for example, you really need, that's going to be factored into it. So eligible costs, we'll talk about labor, force account labor. Does anybody doesn't understand that or not familiar with that term? Force account labor, that's your employees, your full-time employees, your part-time employees. Category A, that's straight and regular time. That's regular time and overtime is eligible. Category B, it's overtime hours only. C through G is regular and overtime is included in this. You'll have to have, once we come to you and we start looking at the force account labor, we're going to ask you for your policies. We're going to ask you for your timesheet, your fringe benefits. Everything else is going to factor into it, so we can try to get as much funding to make you whole after this event. Materials is an eligible cost. I pick on our friends with the co-op. They've got materials already on the shelf that they'll pull in some instances. So materials that you either pull, that you go buy, or you already have on your shelves to utilize, that's an eligible cost. Applicant owned equipment, so that's forced account equipment. So your equipment is an eligible cost. If you don't know how too much to charge back for that piece of equipment, there is a cost code sheet, that booklet that we can help you get, and it'll show you what your vehicle is worth per mile, per hour, whatever the case may be. But one thing I do want to warn you about is our equipment, for the most part nowadays, requires somebody. It's going to have a body attached to it. So if you are running your own equipment, be sure to keep a log to who's running that piece of equipment, and make sure that person's going to be working that day. So be sure we're tracking that information, because it doesn't run by itself, and FEMA will ask that. They will want to know who it is running that piece of equipment. Contracts, contracts are I just don't even want to say much about them. I'm going to let the lawyers talk about that. But get your lawyers involved in the contracts to ensure that procurement's done right. Last thing you want to do is get at the end of the day and find out that it's not, and there's the apple that poisoned the whole thing again. And rental equipment. Rental equipment, or rental anything, can be an eligible cost if you need it. Keep up with that contract for that rental equipment. Keep up with your payments, proof of payments, so we can apply that back to the project worksheet. So rental equipment, whether it's a light plant, whether it's a bulldozer, it doesn't matter. If it's doing eligible work, that cost is eligible. So types of projects. We have small projects, large projects, improved projects, and alternate projects. So thresholds. Thresholds for projects, $3,900 will have to be the amount before a project's even written. That's taking into account insurance. So even say a deductible on a car, and it's a $20,000 car, your deductible is going to be $2,500. That falls below the $3,900. They're not going to write a project for it. Other thresholds to keep in mind is the difference between a small project and a large project. Public assistance projects are processed as either a small or large project. If the project cost is less than the large project threshold, the project is processed as a small project. Y'all want to say that again? If the project cost equals or exceeds the large project threshold, the project is processed as a large project. I think I can find some more P words to put in there. So $1 million and change, let's call it $1 million, is going to be that difference. That's that threshold. Above million, large; below, small. That includes insurance. I'm sorry?
Below the million or below the $3,900?
Between $3,900 and $1 million is a small project. And if it's above that $1 million, it's going to be a large project. What's the difference between a large and a small project? So a small project is funded based on work completed if available, or the initial cost estimate. Federal cost share is paid as soon as practical based on the complexity of the project, and the cost of work is less than $3,900, the work is not eligible. Large project. Initially approved based on estimated cost. Funding is based or documented on actual cost. Federal cost share is paid as work is accomplished. So, that being said, small project, FEMA will never look at it. Once it's obligated, FEMA will never look at that project again. It is us and our auditors that we have to satisfy. So we were going to ask you for information, not a ton of it. Just give me your basic down and dirty information, your invoicing, your time records, your proof of payments. So what's the downside? What's the big difference between a small and a large? Small project prices, obligated amount will never change. It's bankable. You will get that dollar value at the end of the day. Like I said, FEMA will never look at it again. It will not be adjusted up or down. By saying that, that's also the bad thing. It will not be adjusted up and down. We write it on estimates. That's what it is. End of the day, it costs you more. That will be your responsibility. At the end of the day, it costs you less. You're a good steward of the funding and you got a better deal, or volunteer came up and was going to do it for you. Whatever the case may be, you didn't cost that much money to do it. We are not going to ask you for that money back. I am going to ask you to give me a letter on letterhead saying that you're going to use that money to mitigating something to mitigate future disasters, whether you're building a flood wall or generators or sirens or whatever. I'm going to ask you to give me a letter saying what you're going to state that money, what you're going to spend that underrun on. Okay. Large project, it's the opposite. They're going to come look at it again. So when the work is done, we go to FEMA with the final inspection to say they have completed their work, they have spent all the money, here's all the documentation to support it. If it's more, we'll write an amendment to increase the funding if it's eligible. If it's less, they'll write an amendment to remove that funding. So it will go up and down as the project is completed. If it's more, if it costs more, we'll try to get that in an amendment. If it costs you less, that'll have to be righted too. Okay. Anything questions come to mind about projects, large, small, thresholds? Cool. Improved projects. So, applicant performing restoration work on damaged facility must use the opportunity to make improvements to the facility while restoring the facility to its pre-disaster function. The improvements must be approved by the state prior to construction, may require a FEMA environmental or historical assessment, and the applicant is responsible for the cost of the improvements. Federal funding is limited to the cost of the restoration. Okay? Since we're not dealing with any buildings or any insurable items here, we're not really going to be looking at too much of this. So we are, but just so you're aware, for future disasters, there's opportunities there. If you lose something or something is damaged and you can harden it or make it serve the use better now, then there is opportunities for us to do that. That one bullet that says may require FEMA environmental and historical assessment. Here's the key thing. If you're turning dirt, if you're having to increase the footprint or you're doing something different in the environment, we'll need to get their environmental and historical people involved. They got to approve it. If you don't, then that's non-compliant and it could possibly cause the whole thing to be not funded. Okay? So if in doubt, call us and let us know. Ask, you're going to be doing this, do we need it? Okay? I make the joke that there's if there's a choice between the IRS and the EPA, I'm probably more scared of the EPA. They will shut things down and delay you forever. So we be sure that our environmental interests are being looked after. Alternate projects. So if improvement project is making something better, it's increasing the footprint or making codes and standard upgrades. Alternate project is completely abandoning one and going to another. So an alternate project, when restoration of a damaged facility or function does not serve the public welfare, an applicant may use the public assistance program for another public facility. The alternate project must be approved by FEMA prior to construction, and a request for the alternate project must be made within 12 months of the recovery scoping meeting. We'll talk about those many steps that we'll take with FEMA together. but you need to identify it within the first year that you're going to do something. Again, doesn't seem it's going to be very applicable to this disaster for you guys, but just so y'all know it's there. This is going to be where maybe for example, an old gymnasium got damaged and you were just using it for storage or whatever the case may be, and you don't want that gymnasium. You can take that funding and you can go build you a library or put that towards something else. That's what this is for. I believe the example here is this part of this building that building was destroyed, and instead of replacing that building, they said that we can use 15 buses. So instead of replacing the building, they're just going to take that funding and move it to buy 15 buses. The alternate project may be required an environmental assessment. Again, we don't mess with environmental folks. We want to make sure they're happy. Federal funding is limited to 90% of the federal share, so 90% of that 75 is what that funding is going to be limited to. State and local governments are 75% for the P&P applicants utilizing traditional alternative project methods program. Time limits for project completion begin on the disaster declaration. So we saw those dates earlier, right? The 21st. That's going to be an important date. But we all, because you have 6 months to do Category A work. It needs to be done. You have 18 months to do all your permanent work. The state has the ability to extend that time to double those times, but we'll have to go to FEMA after that. My suggestion is do it quickly. With the environment of FEMA, with the environment of way the government's making changes right now, especially to the FEMA program, do it quickly and let's get it behind you while this program is still the way we know it right now. I don't even know what FEMA will be called in 6 months, so I can't promise you what will be there. So my ask is to get it done quick so we know we're securing that funding. So 6 months for emergency work out of A and B, 18 months for other work. Again, this is what we're just talking about. I can double that time at the state level, but let's keep focused on the original time. So special considerations are issues other than program eligibility that could affect the scope of work and funding of projects. These include insurance, hazard mitigation, environmental protection, floodplain management, and historical preservation and cultural resources. So insurance, we talked about insurance briefly, but we'll dive into it just a little bit more here. Not only do you have to take insurance and apply it to that cost of that project, you also are going to have to maintain that insurance. For example, if FEMA writes a project for $50,000, you're going to have to sign documentation and prove that you have insurance equaling $50,000 on whatever they put it toward. So if you have a building, you had $50,000 worth of eligible damage, a project worksheet is written for $50,000, you're going to have $50,000. You're going to have to maintain $50,000 worth of insurance on that facility. If they come back and it is not maintained, they will thank you for giving them the opportunity to come to your area to visit you. You got to have it. You got to have it if they require you to. So just be aware of that. All actual or anticipated insurance proceeds will be deducted from the eligible project costs for facilities that are insured, and all applicants are required to obtain and maintain insurance coverage on all insurable facilities, condition, and public assistance funding. For flood damages of facilities located within a special flood hazard area, they are covered by flood insurance. Federal assistance will be reduced by the maximum amount of flood insurance proceeds that would have been payable had the facility been insured. So we'll talk about mitigation for a little while. There's two forms of mitigation that FEMA funds. One of them is 406, the other was 404. PA deals with 406. 404 is for things that aren't affected during a disaster, but 406, it's got to be affected by a disaster. It's got to be affected by that declared disaster. So in this example, you're looking at a road and a culvert. Well, during the disaster, the culvert got undermined or clogged up and it got punched out. Threw out the other side, blowing the culvert out, blowing the road out, and opening that new creek. And if during the process we say, okay, we see we're hardening this, can prevent this from happening again, also preventing FEMA from having to pay for it again, they can look at it and say, all right, we'll do wing walls and we'll put a concrete box cover instead of that just metal corrugated pipe covering or pipe. We can come in here and mitigate this, harden this so it won't ever blow out again. That's mitigation. If you have something like that that would benefit a hardening to make it more resilient for another storm, another event, bring it to our attention. And if there's something we'll see, we'll bring it to yours. But let us know if there's something that you feel can be hardened. There are some rules and regulations. There's going to be some math applied to it to see if it falls into the parameters of the mitigation program. But it is something that's an option out there. If you have it, we can try to make it work for you. Environmental and historical preservation compliance. So remember me saying I'm more scared of EPA than I am of the IRS. They'll stop it. They will stop working its tracks, and they can also make funding ineligible. So we really want to make sure that we're doing everything we can, keeping FEMA and us well informed of anything going on that affects environmental or historical preservation. All FEMA fund projects must comply with a variety of EHP law, regulations, and executive orders. EHP review is done prior to funding to ensure compliance with applicable federal law. EHP review is a collaboration between FEMA, the state, the applicant, the tribal entities, and local organizations, and constructions of new facilities, alternate projects, modification expenses, or mitigation or existing facilities may require more extensive EHP review. Any questions about environmental or historical? So environmental protection, to kind of zoom in on a little bit more, is to ensure all practical means are used to protect, restore, and enhance the environment. FEMA projects must comply with all applicable laws and regulations, including the National Environmental Policy Act, Magnuson-Stevens Act, Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the 44 CFR Parts 9 and 10. Environmental and historical preservation compliance, all FEMA funds. Yeah, I thought I messed that up. Floodplains and wetland management. Any project within or affected the floodplain or wetlands must be reviewed to ensure that it meets the requirements of several federal laws and executive orders. EO 11988 floodplain management, EO 11990 protection of wetlands. So I believe probably the only thing that's really going to be affected is where your temporary disposal sites are going to be. But I believe you've been in touch with MDEQ. Y'all went to a landfill, didn't you?
We've not got started.
I got started, okay. So be sure you're in touch with MDEQ to make sure that your sites are permitted. If not, that could be a huge problem for you. So any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. We can give you the contact numbers and get you in contact with the right people to make that happen. So historical preservation and cultural resources. The National Historic Preservation Act requires FEMA grantees and applicants to assess potential effects to historic and cultural resources such as historical buildings, structures and districts, archaeological and tribal sites, objects and artifacts. Historic preservation and cultural resources. FEMA, the state, and the applicant work together to identify and address historic preservation issues before approval of funding for public assistance projects. May require consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office, Tribal Historic Preservation Office, and the Advisory Council on the Historic Preservation. So I mentioned this a couple of times as record keeping. Be sure that you keep good records throughout this process. Even if it's a small project, we're going to have that information. My advice: there's two ways to upload information, and one of them is the federal database, which is Grants Portal, and the other is going to be the state maintained database, which is Mississippi PA. And either one is fine. Both are fine. But just because I am not ever going to ask anybody, if it's in our control, to duplicate work, if you have to load something once, do it to the federal system. Put it into Grants Portal. But
The call that we got yesterday on making sure that we use, or the EMA directors use, that their responsibility would be for them to load, to get this initial applicant loaded up. What portal is that?
Grants Portal is where the RPA will be, if that's what you're discussing.
Okay.
And you contact us, and if you don't have an account, I believe everybody here does, but if you don't have an account, contact us and we'll get you one set up. But again, if there's one, use Grants Portal. But don't throw something in Grants Portal, upload it, and just not say anything about it. Because it's like finding a needle in a haystack. We need to know that it's there. So please, if your state and federal representative, if they're still in town, let them know that you've uploaded. Just send them a quick email saying I uploaded whatever into Grants Portal, and it is titled. And then if say it's titled, or if you want to include it as attached file in the email, that's fine too. If you want to just send it to one of our project officers, we'll upload it for you. Whatever the case may be, let's just be sure that we're putting it somewhere where we can find it and track it in case we ever need it down the road. And you're required to maintain all this documentation 3 years, and that's 3 years post closure of that project. It's not 3 years from the date of the declaration. It's not 3 years from when you stopped or you completed the work. It is 3 years from when that project is closed, and you'll be notified when that project closes out officially. Sir?
Katrina's not closed down.
That's correct. Well,
That's been for almost 20 years.
it's 20 years this year, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So documentation is going to be in force account labor, force account equipment, materials, rental agreements, rental information, and contracts. We went over this earlier. Force account labor is the applicant's payroll policy will be needed. The applicant's benefit calculation worksheet will be needed. Applicant's complete employee list should include employees' rates, exempt versus non-exempt employees, timesheets, payrolls, copies of canceled checks, and proof of direct deposit. Force account equipment documentation is going to be the applicant's equipment listing, the equipment documentation sheet, the employee's timesheet reflecting the equipment operating time, date of use, and FEMA schedule of equipment rates. I know our EPA friends have some of their own rates that they use. Some of them it varies a little bit, but if you have a normal that you can prove that you use it outside of disaster, something that's federally declared, that's fine, but that FEMA schedule of equipment rates is the safest one to use. Material, force account material, you'll need the summary record, the applicant's material inventory list dating prior to disaster, if it's something coming off your shelf, and materials request sheets if available, invoices for material purchased and put in inventory, and copies of checks paying the invoices. Okay. We'll touch on this in just a second, but we've pretty much beat this one to the ground. Procurement, procurement, procurement. That will mess something up bad, and contact your attorney. Let them know, let them walk you through the procurement, proper procurement source, and they can help you out. If you need any help wanting somebody to review it, we're happy to put it to you in a link, or pass it along to somebody. But we're not attorneys, and we're not going to act like it. And we'll find somebody with FEMA that will bless it or give you pointers or advice. But generally speaking, they're going to say you need to talk with your lawyer first. Rented equipment, we've discussed this a little bit, so copies of signed rental agreements, invoices, and proof of payment. And that we're taking the assumption that it's eligible work that this piece of equipment's doing. Appeals. So if upon a federal action, you have the authority to say, hey, FEMA, I don't agree with that, and you have 60 days to provide me something in writing that says you don't agree with it, your reasoning, and your documentation to back up your reasoning. I have 60 days from that day to forward it on to FEMA for them to look at. So I'm going to tell you right now, there's not really a big sense of humor about this 60 days, 120 day total. I've got to have it. If I can't prove that you sent it on or before 60 days, they will kick it out. It'll be the quickest decision they've ever made. So if you don't like it and you want to appeal, get it to me sooner the better. That way we don't mess with that clock. FEMA has 90 days to render a decision. Do we think that never happens, right? We don't see those decisions turn that quick. But that's their choice. That's their prerogative, I guess. And so we pretty much have no options but to wait on their verdict. So you have a first level appeal that goes to the regional office in Atlanta. They make their decision that comes back. You still don't agree with it. It didn't go your way, or partially didn't go your way, and you still like it should be different. You have an opportunity to do a second appeal. Same time frame, 60 days from when you were notified to get it to me, 60 days for me to get it to FEMA. And then that's your second appeal. It goes to Washington, to the headquarters to get their evaluation. It really needs to be something different. Don't regurgitate the same information you tried on your first appeal. Add to it. Get more information. Try to build upon your case a little bit more. And when we submit it to headquarters in Washington, their appeal department, they look at it. Whatever they decide is final. There will be no more action on it. The other option to this is arbitration. There's a couple of different routes to go about getting to arbitration. We can discuss it when it comes down to it. But it's simply saying arbitration is where 3 federal judges are picked, and the case will be presented to them. No juries, just the 3 federal judges. Not a court case, but they presented the case, and they will make a decision. Their decision is final. Time limits, we've gone over those several times, but it's worth repeating, right? Because they like to hold your feet to the fire on that. 30 days. I'm saying at the end of this week. You saw the date June 20th. I'm asking for the end of the week. Get it to me sooner the better. 60 days from the recovery scoping meeting, and this is a federal FEMA term. Recovery scoping meeting will be your first meeting that you have with the FEMA representative. Will be there with you, and the program will be represented to you again, essentially. There's no way out of it. FEMA is an applicant as well, and I have to listen to the program, so I've listened to it several times. So there's no way out of it. We just have to check that box.
Do we know when that's going to be?
They'll be set up. Once you get your RPA turned in, FEMA approves the RPA, and then they'll set that up once they assign it to somebody to reach out to you. So it's an individual one-on-one basis. So several things happened during the Sandy Recovery Act, the pre-removal operations. That is where straight time came into your debris removal operations. And if you have any recycling through your debris removal operations, that can be kept as well, not applied to reduce federal funds. In permanent work, Section 428, essentially what this is, we talked about alternate projects where you can, didn't replace that building that you're going to buy 15 school buses. Well, this is, you're taking several buildings, you're taking several projects, lumping them together, and then doing something completely different with that funding. So You may take, you lost 3 buildings that were not being utilized. You don't want to build those buildings back because they would not best serve the public. You can take that fund and go somewhere else. Grants portal, we talked about being one of the databases that can be your information can be uploaded in. That's the federal one. If you're going to upload something into just one, that would be the one. If you don't have access to this, get in contact with us and we will get you an access, username and a password to get access to this. You will need it going forward with the program. So if any questions or concerns, let us know about that and we'll walk you through that. This is how to submit a request for public assistance through Grants Portal. If you already got the login information, well, you log in, you click Submit Request for Public Assistance, follow the prompts. I know you can't see it, but follow the prompts down to requesting public assistance, and it'll walk you through the system. It's super simple. It won't take you very long to do. And please, I want to shamelessly use this time to beg again. Please have it done by Friday. Let's get ahead of this so I don't have to go begging. So I think everybody has Grants Portal access, but if you don't, let me know. Things that you'll need is the name of your organization, your tax ID number, your DUNS number, point of contact, name, position, phone number, email address. We can get you logged. We can get you set up in Grants Portal and then go from there. Once the RPA is approved, you'll be contacted by the program delivery manager and for either MEMA or FEMA to initiate several meetings. There'll be several of these steps, and the first one's going to be this exploratory call. They're going to explain the program to you again. It's very much more abridged. I know we're at an hour now, but it's very much more abridged than our conversation now. You can discuss the damages, but at this point you're not really looking for that list. Introduce damage inventory, so they're going to show you what kind of information they want and how they want it. They're going to discuss documentation with you, what kind of documentation they're going to want to see, and discuss schedule and scoping meeting. The scoping meeting is going to be when they really dive into the damages and trying to quantify those. So your damage inventory is going to be the applicant captures all disaster-related damages submitted through the Grants Portal. Initial damage inventory submitted before recovery scoping meeting. So I know that says submitted through the Grants Portal, but we and FEMA will also work with you if you just want to hand it straight to us and the project can be formulated. We're not asking you to do anything, build anything right now with this system. This system is kind of in its infancy, and we will, and again, things change with FEMA every day, and I think eventually we'll probably be something strictly like this, but we'll still be with you and working through it. So either way is fine. If you want to just give us a list of all your damages and we can put it in there, or FEMA can put it in there, but we're going to work with you on getting it done, so please don't start getting nervous about putting information into Grants Portal. And this is where we're going to talk about initial damage inventory submitted before recovery scoping meetings. So that's where that one's going to come in place to really digging into what your damages are. I'm hoping since we're 3 months into this now, you've got a pretty good idea of what that is, what your costs are. So I'm looking for this to go real smooth. Yes.
On the debris management estimation, if we underestimate it, can we reevaluate it or what? Or
So y'all's debris in particular is going to be it's going to be a large project, right?
Oh no, we're thinking between $7 and $8 million. Right?
Sure. So that's going to be a large project. We know that, and we'll be able to adjust that up and down at the end. Now they'll estimate it just to get a project and a project amount to start seeing about funding if we can, but at the end of the day, when the work is complete and the documentation's gathered, then we're going to go back to FEMA and say that it was actually more, or it was actually a little bit less than we estimated. So that'll be righted at the end of the day. Okay. But again, remember that's a large project. A small project won't be righted, but in your case, on a large project, it will be righted to match what you actually spent. Okay. So during the scoping meeting, again, inventory is going to be discussed. But here's the biggest thing I want to take away from this. At the end of this scoping meeting, they're going to tell you, all right, your clock starts. You have a 60-day window to get all your damages in. If you decide something after 60 days has not been presented and not part of that project worksheet, then here we got to go back to begging FEMA to allow it in. There's no guarantee that if you decided, whatever the case may be, that something's damaged after that 60 days, that FEMA's going to allow for it to be added. So please, all efforts to make sure you know everything that was damaged by that 60-day mark of that recovery scoping meeting. We'll discuss all this more, but
One more question.
yeah.
On the 60 days, can it start at the date of the declaration or the date of the event?
It starts at 60 days is going to start at the end of that recovery scoping meeting, and they'll tell you when it starts. They'll tell you when that 60 days is going to start. That's like 3 meetings into this that you'll have personally with FEMA, and when that happens, they're going to be sure to let you know this is when that 60 days is going to start,
Okay.
and you'll be well aware of that. So we'll be sure that you're at least know when the 60-day period is. Okay. So you'll start developing after that scoping meeting. That's when the project actually starts to take form. You'll start seeing it come populating information into grants portal. You'll also be asked to approve things through grants portal. You'll get notifications to take a look at the scope of work or the damage inventory and make sure that's in line to your understanding, and then you have the ability to approve it so it can move forward in the obligation process. So who should be the applicant agent? It doesn't necessarily have to be an EMA director. It doesn't necessarily have to be the CFO. It doesn't have to be, but biggest things to think about is somebody who understands the concept, the elements of the program. It's also someone who's familiar with a computer, who's well organized and readily available, because this is going to take some time. This is going to put a lot on their plate. So if it's you, there's another hat. But if it's somebody else that you choose for it to be, or the Board of Supervisors choose for it to be, or whatever the case may be, that they have the time to dedicate to this. It's not going to be overtaxing. We'll be there to help you, but there's going to be several meetings. There's also going to be some times where we're going to have to be sure that they have the opportunity and availability to collect documentation that we need so we can get y'all paid.
We've hired ARCS
Yes, sir.
to handle ours. How much do I need to be involved with them? I know last time they tried to keep me out and FEMA told them no.
You're paying their bill, right? So I don't want someone just,
Well, they say that. They said it was coming through a grant. It wouldn't cost us anything, but I don't know about that.
yes, sir. We can talk more about it later, but I want you to be aware of what they're doing and the money they're spending, because if a third party is sending me an email that's costing you money, and I want to make sure that you're aware of it. I would prefer to have someone employed with the applicant. It may not be you yourself, maybe a deputy, maybe the clerk, or whoever. I would feel more comfortable dealing directly with someone who is a full-time employee of the agency. I was a consultant myself for years, so I get the need for it, but I'm more comfortable when somebody who works for the agency or who is part of the applicant's organization.
We have our comptroller involved in it. And
Something like that. I just don't want to start receiving emails, and at the end of the day, I get a phone call and saying, "Hey, I've got X amount of money billed towards me just from emailing you." I want you to be aware of it. I want the county to be aware of what's being spent there. Phone calls and meetings and things like that. That's money coming out of y'all's pocket, and I just want that tracked, and I feel more comfortable. I'm all for it. Like I said, I was a contractor for years, and understand the importance and recommend them in a lot of cases, but do kind of like monitoring your monitors, monitor your contractors as well, even if they're the program managers, if you will. Fair enough? All right, any questions on who could be or should be the applicant agent? Grants portal is going to be a part of the future. We're going to have to use it and tackle it some, so just familiarize yourself with it. It's not a big scary beast. You promise you're not going to tear it up. Get in there and look at it, and if there's any questions, we will do our best to work around it. There's a lot of aspects of it that we don't even quite fully grasp, but we will work through it to the best of our abilities. We'll learn together, or at least help you find out. The pace of this is going to be hit and miss. Sometimes it's going to be really quick, and we're going to really be asking a lot of you. Some of the times it's going to be really slow. So the pace is going to fluctuate, but we're never going to put more on you than you can handle. We'll work with you the best we can. If we are pushing you, because there's a timeline, and we want to meet it. We don't want anything to happen to your reimbursements, because we want you, really, the end goal at the end of our day is for you to get every penny that you're legally eligible to get. You'll feel that you're being rushed and supply the required documentation. The goal is to get your projects developed so that your reimbursement can flow quickly. Managing your public assistance grants will require that you make meetings and documentation a priority. So in summary, a public assistance program assists in the restoration of the community's infrastructure. It is a supplemental cost reimbursement program with specific eligibility requirements. I wasn't too far off. Anybody have any questions? If you do, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be sure anybody gets a card that wants it. We will try to get you lined up with who you from my office will be talking to, and who will be in contact with you before you leave. So with that, guys, we'll go find something to eat.